People always say the worst thing about fishing is getting skunked. After what happened to me in northern Minnesota, I wish that had been my biggest problem. My name is Travis, and this happened 3 summers ago. My friend Eric had been talking for weeks about an isolated lake that hardly anyone visited anymore. It wasn't marked on most tourist maps, and reaching it meant driving down an abandoned logging road before hiking nearly 2 miles through thick forest. That alone should have been enough to make me say no. But Eric insisted the fishing there was unbelievable. We left before sunrise on a Friday. Cell service disappeared about 40 minutes after leaving the highway. The farther we drove, the quieter everything became. No cabins, no boats, not even power lines. When we reached the trailhead, I noticed another truck parked there. It looked old, covered in dust with flat tires sinking into the dirt. Think somebody abandoned it? I asked. Eric shrugged. Probably hunters. Something about it bothered me. The driver's window was rolled halfway down, even though rain had clearly soaked the inside more than once. Leaves had collected across the dashboard. It hadn't moved in a long time. We ignored it and started hiking. The lake was beautiful, perfectly still. The water reflected the trees so clearly it almost looked like glass. There wasn't another person around. We set up camp near the shoreline and launched Eric's small inflatable boat. For several hours, everything felt normal. We caught plenty of bass. We laughed. By late afternoon, the clouds rolled in covering the sun. The temperature dropped enough that we both grabbed jackets. That was when I noticed something floating near the opposite shore. At first, I thought it was another fisherman standing knee-deep in the water. But it never moved, even after 10 minutes. I pointed it out. Eric stared through his binoculars. That's weird. What is it? I can't tell. We paddled a little closer before both stopping at exactly the same moment. It wasn't standing. It was a dead tree stump sticking out of the water. We laughed at ourselves. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling someone had been watching us. That evening, we cooked dinner over a small fire. As darkness settled over the lake, every sound seemed amplified. Branches cracking, loons calling across the water, fish splashing somewhere beyond our flashlight beams. Around midnight, I woke needing to use the bathroom. The fire had almost burned out. Everything else was completely silent. Then I heard something. A slow splash. Another. Then another. Not random. Rhythmic. Like someone walking through shallow water. I froze. The sound came from directly in front of camp. I shined my flashlight toward the shoreline. Nothing. The beam reached the water. Still nothing. The splashing stopped instantly. I stood there listening for nearly a minute before convincing myself it had probably been a deer crossing the edge of the lake. I went back into the tent. Just as I zipped it closed. Splash. One step. Splash. Another. Closer this time. Eric whispered, "You hear that?" I nodded. Neither of us spoke. The footsteps continued for maybe 20 seconds before stopping completely. Neither of us slept much after that. Morning couldn't come fast enough. The strange feeling stayed with us all day. Fishing wasn't nearly as good anymore. It was almost as if the lake itself had gone quiet. No birds. No insects. Even the wind seemed to disappear. Late that afternoon, we decided to paddle around the shoreline before heading back. About half a mile from camp, we found something tied to a low branch hanging over the water. A faded orange life jacket. Old, sun-bleached, covered in mold. Eric reached out with a paddle and pulled it closer. Written across the inside collar in black marker were 2 words. Don't stay. Neither of us laughed. Neither of us said a word. Eric slowly dropped it back into the lake. We turned the boat around without catching another fish. As we paddled back, I looked over my shoulder one last time. The life jacket was gone. There wasn't enough wind or current to move it. It had simply disappeared. We packed faster than either of us wanted to admit. Neither one of us mentioned the life jacket. Neither one of us mentioned the footsteps. We just wanted to leave before dark. By the time we reached the trail, the sky had already turned gray. The hike back felt completely different. Every few minutes I'd hear what sounded like someone stepping on leaves behind us. Whenever we stopped, the sound stopped too. Eric finally turned around. "Who's there?" Nothing answered. Only the trees. We kept walking. About halfway to the parking area, I noticed fresh footprints in the muddy trail ahead. Bare feet. Large. Deep enough that whoever made them had some weight. The strange part was they only went one direction. Toward the lake. There were no matching prints coming back. Eric looked at me. "You seeing this?" I nodded. Neither of us followed them. We just kept moving. When the parking area finally came into view, relief washed over me. Until I noticed the abandoned truck. Its driver's door was wide open. Neither of us had left it like that. We loaded our gear without saying much. Just before climbing into Eric's truck, I looked toward the old vehicle. Inside, hanging from the rearview mirror, was the same orange life jacket we'd found floating on the lake. I know it was the same one. The black writing faced the windshield. Even from 20 feet away, I could read it. "Don't stay." I grabbed Eric's arm. "Tell me you see that." He looked. His face immediately lost color. We got in the truck. The engine wouldn't start. Again, nothing. Eric tried a third time. Still dead. He swore under his breath. The battery was fine. Then 3 slow knocks hit the back of the truck. Knock, knock, knock. Not loud, not aggressive, just deliberate. We both turned. No one was there. The truck bed was empty. Another 3 knocks came from the driver's side. Then silence. Eric finally got the engine running. Neither of us looked back. We drove until we found cell service and stopped at the first gas station we saw. The clerk noticed how shaken we looked. When Eric casually mentioned the lake, the man's expression changed. "You boys camped there?" We nodded. He stayed quiet for several seconds before speaking. "People still go missing around that place." I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He explained that decades earlier a local fisherman disappeared without a trace. Search teams found his boat drifting empty. Months later, another fisherman vanished. Then another. No bodies. No answers. Locals eventually stopped visiting that lake. I asked about the abandoned truck. The clerk frowned. "What abandoned truck?" I described it. "Old blue pickup. Flat tires. Leaves inside." He slowly shook his head. "I was out there 2 days ago, delivering supplies to a forestry crew. There wasn't any truck." Neither Eric nor I knew what to say. We drove back the following weekend with 2 sheriff's deputies because neither of us could stop thinking about it. The trailhead was exactly where we'd left it, but there was no abandoned pickup, no tire tracks, no broken glass, nothing. The deputies searched the area anyway. One of them eventually called us over. Half buried beneath the leaves near where the truck had supposedly been was a rusted fishing license. The date printed on it was 1989. The name matched one of the missing fishermen the gas station clerk had mentioned. I haven't gone fishing in a remote lake since then. Friends still invite me every summer. I always make an excuse, because every now and then, usually late at night, I'll wake up after hearing the same sound that echoed across that silent lake. Splash, splash, splash. Slow footsteps moving through shallow water, getting closer every time. I never thought a fishing trip could change the way I looked at silence. My name is Travis Bennett, and this happened in northern Minnesota during the second week of September 2023. I've gone fishing since I was a kid, so when my coworker Cole Ramsey invited me to spend a weekend at a small lake his uncle used to visit, I agreed without thinking twice. The place wasn't on any tourist maps. Just an old gravel road, a forgotten boat launch, and miles of thick pine forest surrounding dark water that barely reflected the sky. We arrived around 5 in the afternoon. There wasn't another truck in the parking area. Cole joked that we'd have the entire lake to ourselves. Looking back, I wish someone else had been there. The first few hours were perfect. We caught several walleye before sunset, cooked dinner beside the shore, and talked about work and family while the fire slowly burned down. Around 9, that night the woods became unusually quiet. No frogs, no crickets, nothing. I've spent enough nights outdoors to know forests are never completely silent. Cole noticed it too. He looked toward the trees and quietly asked, "Do you hear that?" I laughed. Hear what? Exactly. That answer bothered me more than if he'd heard something. We decided to fish for another hour from the boat before sleeping. The lake looked like black glass. Our flashlight barely reached 20 feet across the water. About 30 minutes later, I noticed something floating near the middle of the lake. At first, I thought it was another fishing boat, but it wasn't moving. No lights, no sound, just a dark shape sitting perfectly still. Cole pointed toward it. "You see that?" I nodded. Neither of us spoke. As we drifted closer, the shape slowly disappeared beneath the water. Not like it sank, more like it lowered itself, smoothly, without creating a ripple. I told myself it had been an old log, nothing more. Then our fish finder suddenly lost depth. Instead of reading 43 feet, it flashed 3 dashes. Then 0. Then 43 again. At the exact same moment, something bumped the bottom of our aluminum boat. Once. Hard. Both of us froze. Another hit. Stronger this time. The boat rocked enough for my tackle box to slide across the floor. Cole grabbed the flashlight and pointed it into the water. Nothing. Only blackness. Then we heard a splash behind us. Not a fish. It sounded like someone climbing out of the lake. We turned around instantly. Nothing. The shoreline sat about 70 yards away. Our truck lights were barely visible through the trees. "Let's head back," Cole whispered. For the first time all evening, I heard fear in his voice. He started the trolling motor. It refused to move. Battery indicator showed full power. The propeller simply wouldn't spin. Then another loud impact slammed the side of the boat. This time I actually saw water rise beside us. Something large had pushed against the hull from below. I grabbed the paddle. We began rowing toward shore. Halfway there, I looked back. Something was following us. Not swimming, walking, just beneath the surface. I could see 2 slow disturbances in the water moving at the same pace as our boat. Like footsteps. Impossible footsteps. Neither of us said a word until we reached the dock. The second the boat scraped against the wooden ramp, the lake became completely still again. Almost like nothing had happened. We loaded our gear faster than either of us had ever packed before. Neither one of us wanted to admit we were scared. Then Cole suddenly stopped moving. He was staring toward the tree line behind the parking lot. His face turned completely pale. Very quietly, he said, "Travis, someone's standing behind your truck." I turned around expecting another camper. There wasn't one. At least not someone I could clearly recognize. About 50 yards away between 2 pine trees stood what looked like a man. No flashlight, no backpack, no fishing gear. Just someone standing perfectly still. It was too dark to see his face. I called out, "Hey, you all right?" No answer. Cole climbed into the driver's seat. "We're leaving." I kept watching. The figure hadn't moved. Not even once. Then my truck headlights flashed as Cole started the engine. For less than a second, the beams lit the trees. The man was gone. Not walking away. Gone. We both searched the woods. Nothing. I convinced myself we'd imagined it. Maybe a tree stump. Maybe exhaustion. We pulled onto the gravel road and started driving back toward the highway. About 10 minutes later, Cole suddenly slowed down. "What now?" I asked. He pointed ahead. Fresh, wet footprints crossed the middle of the road. Bare human footprints. They came from the woods on one side, crossed directly in front of us, and disappeared into the trees on the other. There hadn't been rain for nearly a week. Nothing should have been wet. Neither of us got out to inspect them. We kept driving. Another 5 minutes passed before we reached the only bridge leaving the area. As our headlights swept across it, someone was standing in the center. Same height, same posture, head lowered, arms hanging at the sides. Cole slammed on the brakes. The truck stopped about 40 feet away. Neither of us spoke. Then, without warning, the figure stepped backward over the bridge railing. No attempt to grab it. No scream. It simply disappeared into the darkness below. We waited. No splash. Nothing. After nearly 30 seconds, Cole whispered, "Drive." We crossed the bridge. I looked over the side as we passed. There wasn't anyone below. Only a narrow creek reflecting the moonlight. The next morning, curiosity got the better of us. We drove back with 2 county deputies. I didn't care if they thought we were crazy. I just wanted someone else to see what we'd seen. The boat launch was exactly as we'd left it. So was the lake. One deputy checked the bridge. Nothing. The other walked the shoreline. After a few minutes, he called us over. Near the mud beside the dock were barefoot prints leading out of the water. We all saw them. The strange part wasn't that they existed. It was where they ended. The track stopped in the middle of an open clearing. No return prints. No animal tracks. Nothing leaving the area. One deputy quietly looked around before saying, "I don't have an explanation for this." Neither did we. We packed our things and left for good. A month later, I mentioned the story to an older man working at a bait shop about 30 miles away. Before I even finished explaining which lake we'd visited, he interrupted me. "You stayed there after dark?" I nodded. He slowly shook his head. "My father used to fish there." "What happened?" "He quit going after seeing someone walk across the lake one night." I never asked another question. I sold that boat the following spring. People tell me it was probably stress, wildlife, or tricks of the light. Maybe they're right. But every September for just a few nights, I wake up around 3 in the morning after hearing what sounds like slow footsteps moving through shallow water outside my bedroom window. I live more than 600 miles from that lake. I've never gone night fishing again.